Yes guys, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel. My name is FPL Nacho, and in this video we're going to be discussing all things goalkeepers, and in particular focusing on each price range to highlight the best goalkeeper to own ahead of game week 1. So if you are new around here, make sure you do hit that subscribe button, and if you are looking forward to this video, make sure you do drop it a like. So with all that said and done, let's get started. Right guys, so as I mentioned, first up we are going to be looking at each individual price bracket, and the first one that we need to discuss is the 4.5 million goalkeeper. Now, it isn't a secret if you have tuned into some of my videos before that I am all about the 4.5 million goalkeeper range. Now this season has been a little bit different. They've reduced the 6 million goalkeepers of previous seasons down to 5.5, which has given us a bit more of a deliberation. But I still think there are excellent 4.5 million goalkeepers available to us. And I think the top two for us to consider are Brentford's Raya and Brighton's Sanchez. Now, based on our fixture analyzer, we have Brentford as the 7 best for defensive fixtures over the first 5 game weeks, and we have Brighton as the 8th best for defensive fixtures. So very, very close between the two over the opening 5 game weeks. And you can see on screen here in regards to FPL points and expected FPL points, both are incredibly close between the two. In particular, the expected FPL points only 0.02 within them. Now, it is worth mentioning that Raya, of course, missed a lot of the season due to injury, but when he was featuring for Brentford between the sticks, there was a real noticeable improvement as a defensive unit. And I really do think that Raya is an important cog in that Brentford team. Now, the reason I do say that is because they have recently recruited in the goalkeeper department, picking up Lazio's what was #1 goalkeeper to bring competition to Raya between the sticks. I think that is worth mentioning if you are looking at Raya as your 4.5 million goalkeeper, to monitor pre-season press conferences from Brentford's manager to see whether Raya remains the #1 goalkeeper or whether he is going to be in a little bit of a battle for that #1 jersey. But if all things are said and done, it looks like Raya could be a brilliant 4.5 million goalkeeper for us. You can see that in the clean sheets, expected clean sheets, and bonus points department. He is leading the way against Sanchez, but again, incredibly close between the two. Now for Sanchez and Brighton, I still think he remains a brilliant option for FPL managers. Similar to Raya, there have been slight changes at the club. Basuma leaving Brighton means that there's a big gap to fill in that centre defensive midfield role. And we're unsure right now how that is going to affect Brighton from a defensive perspective. But I still think it remains still that Sanchez as a goalkeeper for 4.5 million remains a brilliant option to FPL managers. And as I mentioned, because the underlying stats are so close between the two, I think it's all about which goalkeeper you are favouring from a specific team. And if I had to pick one right now, I think I would just be favouring Raya. I think at 4.5 million in that Brentford side, I think that's the department I would go to if I was looking for it. But I couldn't knock anybody if they were going for Sanchez. There's such little between the two. But if we are getting confirmation that Raya is the #1 goalkeeper at Brentford, I really do think that if I had to put my money, that is where I would go for in the 4.5 million department. But let me know in the comments, guys, who is your 4.5 million goalkeeper of choice? Of course, we have a few other options available to us, like Pickford of Everton. That could be a surprise package this season. So that's the 4.5 million goalkeeper wrapped up. Now we're going to be looking at the 5 million goalkeeper range, where I know there's a lot of very viable options available to us. So I think the two best 5 million goalkeepers available to us this season is going to be Chelsea's Edouard Mendy and Arsenal's Ramsdale. Now, both were excellent value last season, but in particular, now that Ramsdale has gone to 5 million and Edouard Mendy down to 5 million as well, I think there's a real deliberation between the two, and I think they both pose very different sorts of values from their team, respectively. So first up, the underlying stats for both players. The FPL points and expected FPL points are in Ramsdale's favour, and there is a slight gap between the two, in particular in the FPL points per 90. But in the clean sheets and the expected clean sheets, this is where Edouard Mendy does have the upper hand. And I think that is basically to show how dominant that Chelsea defence were in phases over the course of the season. I think Arsenal really showed to be a decent defensive unit over the course of the season, but Chelsea probably more consistently with a better defensive unit under Tuchel. But importantly, which is really dominating here, is that bonus point department. 0.41 bonus points per 90 compared to Edouard Mendy's 0.09, which I think is a really big factor for us to consider. When we are looking at goalkeepers, those bonus points, obviously, which get generated by saves, is a big factor, and where you can get them big discrepancies in points when we are looking at value for goalkeepers. I think obviously that does highlight that Ramsdale does naturally make more saves in this team compared to what Mendy would do in this Chelsea team. So I think that's another factor we really do need to consider when we are comparing these 5 million goalkeepers. I would expect Ramsdale maybe to score a few more points than Mendy just because of that accumulation of bonus points per 90 minutes. Now, the other thing I do want to mention is the other options available in FPL from both teams. Now, with Mendy investing 5 million into a defensive asset effectively, I think it's worth mentioning that we have such brilliant Chelsea defenders available in the game at brilliant prices. And those two are, of course, Ben Chilwell and Reece James, both priced at 6 million. Now, my question would be, should you go for Mendy and a Chelsea defender, or because of the amazing value that they are posing, just go for the double up in the Chelsea defence? And then I don't feel the triple up will be needed to have Mendy in the sticks as well. Whereas at Arsenal, I'm a little bit more underwhelmed by the available options in defence. I think Tomiyasu is a great option at 4.5 million, where he offers consistent minutes. I don't think it offers attacking threat, but I think the minutes alone makes him a viable option. And then we have Tierney at left back. Now, of course, there are discussions right now about Zinchenko, so we're unsure whether that is going to hinder Tierney as an FPL option. And the one thing I would say is the injury record of Tierney does make him a little bit of a question mark in that Arsenal defence. So what I'm getting at there is, while I think Mendy is a brilliant FPL option, I would almost feel like I want to go all in on a double-up Chelsea defence with Chilwell and James, rather than one defender and one goalkeeper. And in the Ramsdale argument, I think although 5 million is great value for Ramsdale, I'd almost rather go down to the 4.5 million in Tomiyasu, get those consistent minutes in the team and save myself 0.5 million. So it's a very interesting debate to have right now. I'd almost rather pay $1 million more and get that high ceiling of the Chelsea defenders, and almost pay 0.5 million less and get those consistent minutes in Tomiyasu. But guys, again, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on these two options at 5 million. I think if I had to pick one, I probably would just favour Ramsdale, just because the opening fixtures over the first 5 game weeks are really good for Arsenal. They're third best on our fixture analyzer for defensive games, whereas Chelsea are 17th for defensive fixtures. Now again, Chelsea's defence can be elite, but with fixtures such as Spurs at home, Leicester at home and Leeds away, I do see fixtures where they could potentially be leaky at the back. And with them selling Rudiger, Christensen and potentially Azpilicueta, while they have signed Koulibaly, we're still unsure how that Chelsea defence is going to merge together and whether they are going to be hitting the ground running early doors. Whereas I think the Arsenal defence has had time to gel as a team. So I think if I want to go for a safer option, I think Ramsdale will be the man for me, and I would look to invest in the Chelsea defenders where they offer such great FPL potential. But let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on the 5 million goalkeepers, guys. Now, last up, we're going to be touching on those 5.5 million goalkeepers because we have a real debate on our hands right now. So the two 5.5 million goalkeepers that I wanted to highlight in this video is Liverpool's Alisson and Man City's Ederson. Now, of course, Spurs' Lloris also comes in at 5.5 million, but I do think that Alisson and Ederson just pip him as a potential FPL option. It is worth noting. So what do we know from these two goalkeepers from last season? Well, the FPL points were in Alisson's favour. He averaged 4.89 points per 90 compared to Ederson's 4.19. But the expected FPL points were in Ederson's favour there at 4.48 per 90 to Alisson's 4.39. So it's interesting to see the discrepancy there between the underlying data and the actual output of the goalkeepers. Now, what I do really like to see here is the clean sheets as well. Very, very close between the two. 0.56 clean sheets per 90 for Alisson, 0.54 for Ederson. Literally nothing in it there. But the expected clean sheets actually quite a big gap here. 0.59 per 90 for Ederson, 0.49 for Alisson. So you can see there that actually Ederson underperformed, and again, Man City as a team underperformed from that defensive perspective. But the big one here, guys, and it goes back to the same argument we have with Ramsdale, is those bonus points per 90, which could really rack up the difference between goalkeepers who are priced at the same price point. 0.42 bonus points per 90 to 0.11 per 90 for Ederson, which is a monstrous gap between the two. Now, it's very, very unusual to see a premium goalkeeper like Alisson rack up so many bonus points per 90. But if the managers did watch last season, you would notice that Liverpool were putting a lot of emphasis on Alisson being almost a one-on-one goalkeeper maestro, really. He really was getting them get out of jail free card. And I do think if Alisson does adopt that same sort of strategy going to this season, then he is going to probably outscore Ederson at the same price point. But what I do like seeing here is, although Ederson's bonus points are right down, that's because Man City don't really concede many chances. So there isn't really an opportunity for him to accumulate bonus points because effectively he doesn't have to make saves. Now, I think the other big debate that we need to have is, while I think Alisson is likely to score more points than Ederson, it's the other Liverpool options available which Alisson will potentially block. If you do go for Alisson between the sticks, then you only have the opportunity to go for 2 outfield players at Liverpool. And when we're looking at the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold, Robertson, Diaz, Jota and Mo Salah, I think having the 3 outfield slots available to you is going to be a better FPL move in the long term, rather than putting one of those spots in the goalkeeper department. Now, with Ederson, on the other hand, I do think there's more of an argument to maybe put him as your Man City defensive asset and leave it for the rest of the season. We know that rotation is a big problem with Guardiola. And I really do think that having Ederson as your goalkeeper, and then you could go for the double up with Cancelo and then go for Haaland up front. I feel a lot more comfortable with that triple up than the Alisson, Trent and Salah triple up, because I feel like you're going to want to dip into the Diaz's or the Robertsons later down the line. Whereas with the midfields in Man City being so hard to predict, you could have Ederson between the sticks and have that as your defensive unit, Haaland, and then you could float between a defensive unit, a double up of Ederson, or you could bring in a midfielder later down the line. So if I had to choose between the two, I think Alisson is a better FPL asset over the course of the season, Ederson would be my pick, because I wouldn't want to block myself from having a triple Liverpool outfield pick in the team. So that is going to wrap up the goalkeepers, guys, ahead of game week 1. It'd be great to hear your thoughts in the comments section. Who is your top 4.5 million goalkeeper, 5 million goalkeeper, and 5.5 million? From a personal note, creating my game week 1 draft, I am personally opting towards the 4.5 million goalkeepers, as I really think that is where the value lies, and then we can invest the rest of our money elsewhere in the drafts. So that's going to wrap up the video, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please do, if you did enjoy it, drop a like on the video. And if you are new around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. With plenty of videos dropping over pre-season, you don't want to be missing a thing. So hit that notification bell. And all the links to Fantasy Football Fix are in the bio. Make sure you do check it out. Take care, guys, and see you later.